Get your bucket out of my hallway.
Garrett Hollis didn't even look at her. He walked straight toward May Norwood's mop bucket and kicked it hard. Dirty water sprayed across the marble, soaking her shoes and the hem of her uniform. May didn't move, still on her knees, hands gripping the mop. Garrett stopped, turned around, looked down.
You people really can't do anything right, can you? I run a $2 billion company, and I have to step over your filth every night.
Quiet, steady.
I'll clean it up, sir.
That's about all you're good for.
Nobody in that hallway said a word. But what Garrett didn't know, the woman on her knees had raised someone who could end his career with a single phone call. Pinnacle Dynamics Group. 30 floors of steel and glass in the heart of Charlotte, North Carolina. The kind of building where the lobby smelled like fresh espresso and the elevators played soft jazz. May Norwood had been cleaning this building for 14 months. Night shift, 6 to midnight. She knew every hallway, every trash can, every scuff mark on the executive floor. She brought homemade pound cake for birthdays. She learned every janitor's name by the second week. She was 58 years old, and she had chosen this job. Nobody asked why. Nobody cared enough to. Garrett Hollis had been CEO for 2 years. The board brought him in from a rival firm because he'd cut operating costs by 30% in 18 months. Investors loved him. The people who actually worked in the building did not. He was the kind of man who called the cleaning crew the help without lowering his voice. The kind who believed the building existed for him and everyone inside it was furniture. The first time Garrett noticed May, she was polishing the floor outside the boardroom on a Tuesday night. He walked out of a late meeting, phone pressed to his ear, and his shoe slipped on the wet surface. He didn't fall. He barely stumbled. But he stopped, pulled the phone from his ear, and looked at May like she'd insulted him personally. "Are you serious right now? Do you even understand how to do your job?" May set down her polishing cloth. "I'm sorry, sir. I put the wet floor sign at the end of the hall. I should have placed a second one closer." Garrett stared at her. 3 seconds. 4. Then he shook his head and walked away. 2 junior executives stood near the elevator bank. One smirked, the other stared at the floor. The next morning, a company-wide memo appeared. New policy. All cleaning staff must complete executive floor work before 6 p.m. No exceptions. May's shift started at 6. That memo wasn't about efficiency. It was a message, and May Norwood received it loud and clear. If you've ever had a boss who made the rules just to make your life harder, stick around, because what happens next in this building is something Garrett Hollis never saw coming. The memo changed everything. May used to arrive at 6, clock in, grab her cart, and start on the executive floor while it was quiet. 14 months of rhythm. Clean and steady. Now she had to be there by 4 in the afternoon. The executive floor was still full. Phones ringing, meetings running, people walking fast with coffee cups and laptop bags. May was in the middle of it, pushing her cart between bodies that didn't see her. Within a week, Garrett added a second rule. Cleaning staff were no longer permitted to use the main elevator. Service stairwell only. 12 floors, with a loaded cart. May dragged her supplies up those stairs every day. Mop, bucket, cleaning solution, trash bags, paper towels. Her knees ached by the 5th floor. By the 8th, she stopped to lean against the railing. By the 12th, her shoulders burned and sweat ran down the back of her neck into her collar. She was 58. She'd had knee surgery 2 years ago. Nobody knew. Nobody asked. One evening, she was halfway up, when the door on the 8th floor swung open. Garrett stepped in, heading down, jacket off, phone in hand. He saw May, sweating, gripping the cart with both hands, breathing hard. He looked at her the way you look at a stain on a new shirt. Said nothing. Walked right past her. His shoulder pressed flat against the wall to avoid touching the cart, like it was contaminated. Like she was contaminated. The door closed behind him. May stood alone. The fluorescent light buzzed and flickered above her. She tightened her grip and kept climbing. That same week, Garrett banned cleaning staff from the break room. He called it a hygiene protocol. A sign went up, reserved for corporate personnel during operating hours. Maintenance staff, please use designated areas. Designated areas. That meant the supply closet on the 3rd floor. May had been eating lunch in that break room for over a year. A sandwich wrapped in foil. A thermos of sweet tea. 30 minutes at a table by the window where the afternoon light came in warm. Now she ate between shelves of bleach and industrial paper towels. 8 feet by 6. No window. No chair. The air tasted like ammonia. A single bulb cast yellow light that made everything look sick. She sat on an overturned bucket and unwrapped her sandwich on her lap. The bread was warm from sitting in her bag. The lettuce had wilted. She ate it anyway. She could hear footsteps passing in the hallway outside. Laughter. Conversations about weekend plans. Life happening on the other side of a door she wasn't allowed to walk through. Every day for 2 weeks. Alone. In silence. Dolores Whitfield found her there on a Thursday. Dolores pushed open the closet door and stopped. Her face changed. The kind of break that happens when you see something that cracks a piece of you. May, what are you doing here? Eating lunch, Dee. In a closet? It's the designated area. Dolores stepped inside and sat on a box of trash bags. Their knees almost touched. This ain't right. You're eating in a closet like you did something wrong. May took a sip of tea. I'm not hiding. I'm following the rules. His rules, made for one reason. To make you feel small. May looked at her sandwich, then at Dolores. I felt small before, Dee. I survived it then. I'll survive it now. You shouldn't have to survive your own workplace. That afternoon, Dolores walked into Vivian Calloway's office. Vivian was VP of Human Resources. Framed quote on her wall. People first. Dolores filled out the complaint form. Dates, incidents, the stairwell, the break room ban, Garrett's language, his targeting of May above every other member of the cleaning staff. Vivian read the form, tapped her pen against the desk, looked up. I'll look into it, Dolores. These things take time. How much time? I'll be in touch. Dolores waited a week, then 2, then 3. She went back. Door closed. She emailed. No response. She called. Voicemail. That form disappeared. Not denied, not rejected. Just gone, like it never existed. Like Dolores had never sat in that office and written down every word. The tension in that building thickened, like humidity before a Charlotte summer storm, pressing on your chest, sticking to your skin. Garrett hosted a cocktail reception on the 30th floor. Investors, board members, clients from 3 states, champagne, a jazz quartet in the corner, waiters in black vests carrying silver trays. The carpet steam-cleaned that morning. Everything gleamed. May had been told to finish cleaning the kitchen prep area before 7. 2-hour window. The job needed 3. She'd told her supervisor. Her supervisor told Garrett. Garrett said 2 hours was generous for someone in her position. At 7:08, May was still wiping down stainless steel counters. Caterers were plating appetizers around her. She pressed herself against the wall, reaching around trays, working fast. Garrett walked in. Glass of scotch, silk tie. His watch caught the light and flashed. He saw May, still there, still in uniform. He turned to the investors behind him and raised his voice. Not shouting, casual, deliberate. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. It seems our cleaning lady didn't get the memo that this is a professional event. Polite laughs. One investor glanced at May, then looked away. Another sipped his champagne and studied the ceiling. Garrett took 2 steps toward her, close enough that she could smell the scotch. May, that is your name, right? He said it slowly, like the word was unpleasant in his mouth, like he was tasting it and didn't like the flavor. Maybe tomorrow you could try finishing your little chores before the adults show up. Think you can manage that? Or is that too complicated? 4 employees near the door. 2 caterers frozen mid-plate. Nobody spoke. The jazz quartet played through the walls. A trumpet solo, smooth and oblivious. May's fingers tightened on her cloth until her knuckles went pale. Her jaw locked. But her voice came out low and controlled. I'll be out of your way in 2 minutes, sir. Garrett tilted his head, smiled. The kind of smile that says, I own this room, and I own you. You've been in my way since the day you started. He turned back to his investors. The conversation resumed like May had never existed. She pushed her cart through the service door. It was heavy. She had to lean her whole body into it. The hallway on the other side was dim and cold. The floor was bare concrete instead of polished marble. No flowers here. No jazz. No champagne. Just a long gray corridor with flickering lights and the faint hum of ventilation. Party sounds faded behind the metal door until everything was quiet. May stopped. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the concrete wall, rough and cold, tiny bumps under her palms. She focused on that, something solid, something that wouldn't move. Her breath came in short bursts. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. Not here. Not where anyone could find her broken. Earl Sutton found her 12 minutes later. Night security, 63. Bad knee that clicked with every step. He'd watched the feed from the lobby desk. Miss Norwood, you don't deserve that. May nodded. I know I don't, Earl. He offered her water. She took the bottle but didn't open it, just held it, something cool in her trembling hands. They stood in that hallway together. Neither spoke. Sometimes silence between 2 people who understand each other says more than words ever could. 3 days later, the bucket incident happened. Not the memo, not the stairwell, not the cocktail humiliation. Those were warm-ups. This was the line Garrett Hollis would cross and never come back from. 8:45 p.m. Executive hallway. The marble floor gleamed under soft lights. May was mopping near the boardroom entrance. Yellow sign in place. Cart against the wall. Everything done right. Garrett came out of his office. Late meeting. Bad quarter. Phone in one hand, briefcase in the other. He saw the wet floor. He saw May. I thought I made it clear. You are done before I leave this building. I was rescheduled again, sir. My shift. I don't care about your shift. He stopped next to the bucket, his shoe an inch from the rim. I care about results. And you keep failing to deliver even the most basic ones. Then he kicked it. Full. deliberate. The toe of a $400 shoe connecting hard with plastic. The bucket flew sideways, hit the baseboard and spun. Dirty gray water exploded across the marble. It soaked May's shoes, soaked through her socks, splashed up her uniform to the knee. The mop clattered to the ground and rolled until it hit the wall. May flinched. Her hand shot out. Her right knee hit wet floor. Cold water seeped through fabric, gritty, smelling of soap and dirt. A piece of gum that had been in the bucket stuck to the side of her shoe. She could feel the water creeping up the fabric of her pants, cold and slow, like the building itself was swallowing her from the ground up. Garrett stood over her. He didn't step back. He looked down at her the way a man looks at something stuck to his shoe. This is what happens when you people can't stay out of sight. Every single night I deal with this. Maybe I should replace all of you with machines. At least a machine wouldn't leave puddles everywhere I walk. He adjusted his cufflinks, straightened his tie, walked to the elevator. Slow, unhurried, like nothing had happened. Bradley Knox, the CFO, stood at the elevator bank. He'd watched every second, his face carefully blank. He pressed the down button, said nothing. A junior analyst stood behind Knox. 26, first year. She saw it all. Her mouth opened, then closed. She stared at her phone. Nobody spoke. The hallway was silent except for the drip of water from the overturned bucket. Tap, 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 against marble. May knelt in the puddle. Her uniform soaked from the knees down. Her hands trembled. Her chest was so tight it hurt to breathe. But she reached for the bucket, set it upright, picked up the mop, wrung it out, dirty water twisting between her fingers, and started cleaning. Not because she accepted it, because that's who May Norwood was. The kind of woman who finishes what she starts, even when the world is trying to make her quit. Connie Bridges saw everything. 29, front desk receptionist, working late behind the glass partition, clear line of sight to the entire hallway. She watched Garrett walk toward May. She heard his voice through the glass, muffled but unmistakable. She saw the kick. She saw the water fan out across the marble. She saw May go down to her knees. Connie's hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled. Her other hand gripped the desk edge until her fingers turned white. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't stand up, didn't walk over and say what every decent person should have said. She sat behind the glass, watching a woman old enough to be her mother kneel in dirty water and clean up a mess she didn't make. And she did nothing. That was the thing about that building. It wasn't just Garrett. It was every person who saw what he did and decided their comfort mattered more than someone else's dignity. Every pair of eyes that looked away. Every mouth that stayed shut. Every conscience that whispered, "This is wrong," and then went quiet. And that silence, from Connie, from Knox, from the analyst, from every person in that building, was louder than anything Garrett Hollis ever said. That night, May sat in her car in the parking garage for 35 minutes before she turned the key. Her pants were still damp below the knee. The car smelled like cleaning solution and dirty water. She stared at the concrete wall ahead. A crack ran through it, thin and jagged, like the building was splitting from the inside. May lived in a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Charlotte. Small, clean. A couch with a green throw blanket. A kitchen table with 2 chairs, one for her, one for company that rarely came. On the refrigerator, held up by a magnet from a church fundraiser, was a photograph. A young woman in a graduation cap, bright smile, eyes full of the kind of confidence that comes from being raised right. May touched the photo with her fingertip. Then she picked up her phone. "Hey, baby girl." "Mama, you sound tired." "Long day. How was yours?" "Good. Busy. Depositions all morning." May leaned against the counter. Her daughter's voice, warm, clear, steady. And for the first time in hours, the tightness in her chest loosened. "Mama, are you sure about that job? You don't need to be cleaning offices." "I'm sure. I'm close to you. That's what matters." A pause. Then, "I have the hearing next week, Tuesday morning. Will you be there?" "Wouldn't miss it for the world." May hung up. She didn't mention Garrett. She didn't describe the bucket or the water or the words. Some things a mother carries alone, not because she has to, because the last thing she wants is her child worrying when something important is on the line. The next morning, Garrett moved fast. He called Vivian Calloway into his office at 8:15. Door closed, blinds drawn. 20 minutes later, Vivian walked out with a folder and a look on her face like she'd swallowed something bitter. By noon, a formal performance review had been opened on May Norwood. 3 incidents cited, all fabricated. Failure to complete tasks on time. Insubordination toward a senior executive. Improper use of company equipment. The dates on the report didn't match May's actual schedule. One of the cited incidents fell on a night May hadn't even been in the building. She'd called in sick with a fever. But nobody checked. Nobody was supposed to check. The file wasn't built on facts. It was built on intent. None of it was real. Every word was designed to build a paper trail. The kind that ends with a termination letter and a clean conscience for the man who ordered it. Vivian picked up her phone that afternoon and called May directly. "May, this is Vivian from HR. He's building a case. Performance review, written warnings. I've seen this before. Thank you for telling me. I wish I could do more." "Why can't you?" Silence. Vivian was afraid of the same man May faced every night. Except Vivian had a corner office, and she was still too scared to act. That same week, Dolores Whitfield's complaint disappeared from the HR system. Not archived, not pending. Deleted. When Dolores checked online, the system showed no record under her name. 2 days later, Dolores received a written warning. The reason? Time theft. She had clocked in 6 minutes early on 3 occasions. 6 minutes. That was the retaliation. Not a firing, too obvious. Just enough to send a message. This is what happens when you speak up. Dolores showed the warning to May in the supply closet. 6 minutes, May. They're punishing me for over 6 minutes. May took the paper, read it, folded it carefully. "Keep that. Don't throw it away. You might need it later." Earl Sutton was next. Monday, after the bucket incident, Earl was called in and told he was being transferred. Different building, different shift. No explanation beyond operational needs. 11 years at Pinnacle. Never a complaint. Never late. Never missed a shift. But he'd been seen talking to May after the cocktail incident. He'd been seen handing her a bottle of water. In Garrett's building, kindness toward the wrong person was a career-ending mistake. Earl stopped by May's cart on the way out. He was carrying a plastic bag with his name badge, a coffee mug, and a photo of his granddaughter that used to sit on the security desk. "You take care of yourself, Ms. Norwood." "You too, Earl." He nodded once, slow, like he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words that would matter enough. Then he picked up his bag and walked out through the service entrance, the same entrance May used every day. The door closed behind him with a heavy click that echoed down the empty corridor. May stood there for a long moment after he left. The hallway smelled like floor wax and recycled air. She could still hear the faint echo of his bad knee clicking on the other side of the door, getting softer, getting farther away. Then nothing. May was alone now. Truly alone. Dolores silenced. Earl gone. Vivian paralyzed. The one complaint that existed had been erased from the system like it was never written. She ate lunch in the supply closet. She climbed 12 flights with her cart every day. She cleaned the executive floor while people walked past her like she was part of the furniture. Something you step around without thinking, without seeing, without feeling anything at all. Every night she drove home. On the wall of May's living room hung 3 frames. 2 were family photos. May with her late husband at a church picnic. May holding a baby in a yellow blanket. There was something about. He turned around, hands in his pockets. The hallway was empty. Just the 2 of them. "You're still here?" "Yes, sir." "I'm going to be honest with you, May." His voice was quiet now, almost conversational. Somehow that made it worse. "You don't belong in this building. People like you, you're not built for this environment. I've been patient, more patient than you deserve. But I'm going to make sure the board understands that you are not the standard this company needs." May looked at him. For the first time, something shifted behind her eyes. Not anger, not fear. Something quieter. The kind of certainty that comes from knowing exactly who you are and exactly what's coming. "You do what you need to do, Mr. Hollis." She picked up her mop and went back to work. Garrett watched her for a moment, then turned and walked away. His shoes clicked against the marble, sharp even, fading. Down the hall, Connie Bridges sat at her desk. Late shift. Building nearly empty. She was scrolling her phone, half reading, half waiting for her ride home. A headline stopped her thumb. Historic appointment. First black woman named federal judge in Eastern District. Below the headline, a photograph. A woman in a dark blazer at a podium. Confident posture. Familiar eyes. Connie stared at the photo, then looked up. Down the hallway, May was pushing her cart toward the service elevator. Her back was turned. Her shoulders were straight. Connie looked at the photo again, then at May, then at the photo. Her mouth opened. Her breath caught. She said nothing. Dolores Whitfield was not the kind of woman who quit. 9 years at Pinnacle Dynamics, 3 CEOs, 2 budget cuts. A written warning over 6 minutes was not going to stop her. The Monday after her warning, Dolores drove downtown on her lunch break, walked into the regional EEOC office, and filed a formal discrimination complaint against Pinnacle Dynamics Group and its CEO, Garrett Hollis. She brought everything. The original HR complaint she'd written out by hand. She'd kept a copy. The written warning citing 6 minutes of time theft. Dates, times, direct quotes she'd memorized because she knew nobody would believe her otherwise. That same afternoon, Dolores did something else. She printed the complaint, put it in a manila envelope, and mailed it directly to Harold Trent, chairman of the board. Not through HR, not through internal channels, straight to the top. Harold Trent was 71. He'd built Pinnacle from a 3-person shop into a fortune-listed firm. He didn't involve himself in daily operations anymore. He trusted his CEO to run the building. But when he opened that envelope Tuesday morning, his coffee went cold on his desk. He read it twice. Then he picked up the phone and called Lorraine Ashford, chair of the board's ethics committee. "Lorraine, We have a problem. A serious one. I need an emergency session. Monday morning. Full board. Lorraine read the complaint that evening. She called Harold back at 9 p.m. Monday isn't soon enough, but Monday will have to do. Word travels fast in a building made of glass. By Wednesday, Garrett knew. He didn't know everything. He didn't know about the EEOC filing or the direct mail to Trent. But he knew the board had called an emergency meeting. And he knew the word complaint had been mentioned. He sat in his corner office on the 30th floor. The city lights of Charlotte spread out below him like a circuit board. He poured himself a scotch, took a long sip. Then he picked up his phone and called Bradley Knox. Brad, the board is meeting Monday. Something about a complaint from the cleaning staff. Knox was quiet for a moment. What do you need? The security footage from that night. The hallway camera. You know which one. Garrett, pull it. Delete it. I don't care how. Just make it gone before Monday. Knox hung up. He sat in his car in the parking garage, the same garage where May had sat for 35 minutes the week before, and stared at his phone. His thumb hovered over the security system app. He had access. He could do it in 3 minutes. He thought about his mortgage, his kids' tuition, his stock options that vested in 8 months. Then he logged in and deleted the file. What Knox didn't know, what Garrett didn't know, was that the footage was already saved somewhere else. Connie Bridges had copied it. The night of the bucket incident, after everyone left, Connie sat at her desk and opened the security portal. Front desk staff had access for visitor logs. She found the hallway camera file, selected the timestamp, and emailed a copy to her personal account. It wasn't courage. It wasn't a plan. It was something smaller. The feeling that what she'd watched through that glass partition shouldn't disappear. Something that needed to exist somewhere besides her memory. Monday morning, 9 a.m. The boardroom on the 30th floor. Harold Trent sat at the head of the table, Lorraine Ashford to his right, Vivian Calloway to his left, her face pale, her hands folded tight on a manila folder. 2 other board members filled out the far end. Bradley Knox sat near the door, his leg bounced under the table. Garrett Hollis walked in last. Jacket buttoned, tie straight. He carried a leather portfolio and the expression of a man who had already decided how this would end. He'd prepared a counter-narrative overnight. May Norwood was a problem employee. Underperforming, hostile. The complaint was retaliation from a disgruntled worker who couldn't meet basic standards. He sat down, opened his portfolio, looked around the table. Harold, I appreciate the board's diligence. I've reviewed the situation, and I'm confident we can resolve this quickly. The employee in question has a documented history of... The door opened. Every head turned. A woman stepped into the room. Tall, composed, dark blazer over a white blouse. Her posture was the kind that comes from years of standing in rooms where every word matters. She carried a single folder, thin, plain, no label. She looked around the table. Then she spoke. My name is Judge Elaine Norwood Prescott. I'm not here in any official capacity. I'm here as a private citizen, and as the daughter of May Norwood. The room went still. Garrett's hand froze on his portfolio. The pen between his fingers stopped moving. His eyes locked on Elaine's face, searching for something. Recognition. Context. An explanation for why his carefully prepared morning was suddenly falling apart. Harold Trent leaned forward. Judge Norwood Prescott, thank you for coming. Elaine nodded. She didn't sit down. Not yet. I want to be clear about why I'm here. I'm not here to exercise any judicial authority. I have none in this context. I'm not here to threaten this company or this board. I'm here because my mother, a woman who spent 31 years as a public school principal, who retired with honors, who raised me by herself after my father passed, chose to take a cleaning job at this building. Not because she needed the money, because she wanted to stay busy and stay close to me during the most important year of my career. She paused, let the words settle. And instead of being treated with basic dignity, she was systematically humiliated, isolated, and degraded by the man sitting at the end of this table. Garrett opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Lorraine Ashford spoke. Judge Norwood Prescott, do you have documentation? I have something better. Elaine turned to Vivian Calloway. Miss Calloway, I believe you have a file that was supposed to have been destroyed. Vivian's hands trembled. She looked at Garrett, then at Harold. Then she opened her manila folder and slid it across the table. Inside, 3 prior complaints filed against Garrett Hollis by service staff over the past 18 months. Each one had been marked resolved in the system. None of them had actually been investigated. One involved a cafeteria worker Garrett had called slow and worthless in front of her entire team. Another involved a maintenance technician who was fired 2 weeks after reporting Garrett for verbal abuse. The third was Dolores Whitfield's original complaint, the one that had been deleted. Vivian had kept copies of all 3, in a locked drawer, for months, waiting for a moment that felt safe enough to open it. This was that moment. Harold Trent's jaw tightened as he read. Lorraine Ashford removed her glasses and pressed her fingers against her eyelids. Then Elaine said, "There's one more thing. I understand the security footage from the night of October 14th was deleted from your system last week." Garrett's face went white. "That's correct," Knox said from the end of the table. His voice cracked. "I deleted it, on Garrett's direct order." Every pair of eyes in the room turned to Garrett. "However," Elaine continued, "a copy was preserved by an employee who witnessed the incident. I have it here." She opened her folder. Inside was a USB drive. "With the board's permission, I'd like to play it." Harold nodded. The screen at the far end of the boardroom flickered on. And there it was. Grainy, silent, unmistakable. Garrett walking toward May. The bucket. The kick. Water exploding across marble. May flinching, her knee hitting the floor. Garrett standing over her, mouth moving. The words they all knew by now. Then the worst part. Garrett adjusting his cufflinks, straightening his tie, walking away like he'd just stepped over a crack in the sidewalk. And May, alone on the wet floor, reaching for the mop, setting the bucket upright, cleaning. Nobody helping. Nobody coming. The video ran for 94 seconds. Nobody in that boardroom spoke for a long time after it ended. Garrett stared at the frozen frame on the screen. May on her knees, mop in hand, water pooling around her. He looked like a man watching his own future dissolve in real time. And that law degree on May's wall, the one in the dark wood frame that didn't match the room, it was Elaine's. Earned at Howard University, 15 years ago. Back when May was still a principal, still packing lunches, still driving her daughter to study groups on Saturday mornings. The hearing May mentioned on the phone, it wasn't a medical appointment. It was a judicial confirmation hearing for a federal judgeship in the Eastern District. And the woman Garrett Hollis had spent months calling the cleaning lady had raised her. The silence in that boardroom lasted 11 seconds. It felt like a year. Harold Trent was the first to move. He pressed his palms flat on the table and stood up slowly. His eyes never left the frozen image on the screen. May on her knees, mop in hand, alone on the wet marble. Then he turned to Garrett. Is there anything on that video that isn't exactly what it looks like? Garrett's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Harold, there's context here that you're not seeing. I have high standards. I push everyone equally. This woman, she was consistently underperforming, and I— Stop! Lorraine Ashford's voice cut across the room like a blade. She hadn't raised it. She didn't need to. Mr. Hollis, we have 94 seconds of video showing you kicking a bucket of dirty water at a 58-year-old woman. We have your own CFO confirming you ordered the destruction of evidence. We have 3 buried complaints from 3 different employees. This is not a conversation about performance standards. Garrett turned to Knox. His eyes were wild now. The composure he'd walked in with, the pressed suit, the straight tie, the leather portfolio, all of it was crumbling. Brad, tell them. Tell them she was a problem. Tell them about the write-ups. Knox didn't look at him. He stared at the table. His hands were clasped so tight his knuckles had gone white. Brad. Nothing. Bradley. Knox finally looked up. Not at Garrett, at Harold Trent. The write-ups were fabricated. Garrett dictated them. I watched Vivian enter them into the system. The dates don't match May's schedule. One of the incidents cited happened on a night she wasn't even in the building. Garrett's chair scraped back against the floor. The sound was sharp and ugly in the quiet room. You're going to sit there and betray me? After everything I'm done, Garrett. Knox's voice was barely above a whisper. But every person in that room heard it. I'm done covering for you. Harold Trent looked around the table. Lorraine nodded. The 2 other board members nodded. Vivian Calloway stared at her hands but didn't object. Trent straightened his jacket. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man who had built something and was watching someone else try to burn it down. Garrett Hollis, effective immediately, you are terminated as Chief Executive Officer of Pinnacle Dynamics Group. The grounds are gross misconduct, racial discrimination, destruction of evidence, retaliation against employees who filed complaints, and the creation of a hostile work environment. Garrett didn't move. Additionally, Trent continued, this board will commission an independent audit of all HR practices under your tenure. We will institute mandatory anti-discrimination training at every level of this organization. And we will establish an Employee Dignity Oversight Committee, chaired by Lorraine Ashford, with authority to investigate complaints directly, bypassing HR if necessary. Trent paused, looked at Garrett one more time. Security will escort you out. You have 15 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Garrett stood up. His chair rolled backward and hit the credenza behind him. He looked around the room, at Trent, at Lorraine, at Knox, at Vivian. Every face was closed to him. Every door was shut. He picked up his leather portfolio, the one filled with counterarguments and fabricated reviews and a version of the truth that no longer existed. He walked out of the boardroom without a word. 2 security guards met him at the elevator. They handed him a cardboard box. He rode down 30 floors in silence. He walked past the hallway where he'd kicked May's bucket. The marble floor was spotless. No water, no bucket, no woman on her knees. Just clean stone reflecting his reflection back at him. A man carrying a box with nowhere to go. He pushed through the front doors into the Charlotte morning air. Cool, quiet, indifferent. Back in the boardroom, Elaine turned to Harold Trent.
My mother isn't here today. She didn't want to come.
Trent frowned. May I ask why? She said she didn't need to watch a man lose his job. She said she just needed to know it wouldn't happen to someone else. Lorraine Ashford closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman. She is. Elaine excused herself. She took the elevator down to the 3rd floor, walked past the supply closet where May had eaten lunch for weeks, turned the corner toward the break room, the one May had never been allowed to use. May was sitting at the table by the window. A cup of coffee sat in front of her, untouched, steam rising in a thin curl. Her cleaning cart was parked by the door, mop handle leaning against the wall, bucket empty and clean. Elaine sat down next to her. She reached over and took her mother's hand. May's fingers were rough, years of work written into every line and callus. Elaine held them gently. "It's over, Mama." May nodded slowly. She looked at the coffee, then at her daughter. "Did he understand why?" "I think he's starting to. That's the first step." They sat together in the quiet break room, morning light beginning to come through the window. The building hummed around them, elevators moving, phones ringing faintly on distant floors. Life going on. May didn't shout. She didn't demand. She didn't celebrate. She sat in a room she'd been banned from, holding her daughter's hand, drinking coffee that was finally starting to cool. And maybe that's the part that stays with me the most. She didn't need revenge. She needed change. And she got it without ever raising her voice. A knock at the door. Connie Bridges stood in the doorway. Her eyes were red, her hands were shaking. "Miss Norwood, I'm so sorry. I should have said something that night. I should have walked over. I should have—" May looked at her, steady, warm, no anger. "You're speaking now, Connie. That counts." Connie broke. She covered her face with both hands and cried. May stood up, crossed the room, and put her arms around her. Held her like a mother holds a child who finally found the courage to tell the truth. If you know someone who's been treated like they were invisible, at work, at school, anywhere, share this story with them. And drop a comment. What would you have done if you were standing in that hallway? 6 months later, a man sat alone in a coffee shop on the south side of Charlotte. He wore a plain gray jacket, no tie, no cufflinks. His hair was longer than it used to be. His face was thinner. He held a cup of black coffee with both hands, like he was trying to keep them warm, even though it was the middle of June. Garrett Hollis hadn't set foot in a boardroom since the morning he was escorted out of Pinnacle Dynamics with a cardboard box and a security guard on each side. No company would hire him as CEO. The footage had gone public 3 weeks after the board meeting, leaked by someone whose name was never confirmed. It spread the way these things do. First a local news segment, then a repost, then another. Within a month, Garrett Hollis was the man who kicked a mop bucket at a 58-year-old black woman and called her "you people" in a building that bore his signature on every memo. He was working as an independent consultant now. Small firm, no title, no corner office, no one calling him sir. That evening in the coffee shop, a janitor came through the front door with a mop and a rolling bucket. The shop was closing. The janitor, young guy, maybe 25, struggled to hold the door open while pulling the bucket through. Garrett watched. For a long moment, he just watched. Then he stood up, walked to the door, and held it open. The janitor looked surprised. "Thanks, man." Garrett nodded, didn't say anything, went back to his seat. I don't know if that means he changed, but I know it means he remembered. And sometimes remembering is where change begins. May Norwood quit her cleaning job 2 weeks after the board meeting. Not because she was forced out, not because she was ashamed, because her work there was done. She went back to what she knew: teaching. 3 mornings a week, she volunteered at a community center on the east side of Charlotte, tutoring kids from under-resourced neighborhoods. Math, reading, life advice they didn't ask for but always needed. The kids called her Ms. May. She brought pound cake on Fridays. In November, Elaine Norwood Prescott was officially confirmed as a federal judge in the Eastern District. The ceremony was held in a courthouse downtown. Marble floors, dark wood, American flags on both sides of the bench. May sat in the front row. She wore a simple navy dress and her best earrings, small gold hoops her husband had given her the year before he passed. Elaine stood at the podium and addressed the room. Near the end of her speech, she paused, looked at her mother. "Everything I am, I learned from a woman who spent 31 years teaching other people's children." And then, when she thought nobody was watching, she picked up a mop and kept serving. "That's my mother. That's who raised me." The room applauded. May waved it off with one hand. She was smiling, but her eyes were full. She was never in it for the applause. Back at Pinnacle Dynamics, the audit Harold Trent ordered uncovered 12 additional complaints of workplace harassment, buried under Garrett's leadership. 12. Different employees, different departments. Same pattern. Filed, marked, resolved, never investigated. The board acted. A new anonymous reporting system was implemented. An external firm was hired to review every HR case from the past 3 years. Vivian Calloway was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation into her role in suppressing complaints. Dolores Whitfield, the woman who'd been punished for 6 minutes, was promoted to head of facilities management. She got an office with a window. First thing she did was take down the "Designated Areas" sign from the break room door. Earl Sutton was transferred back to Pinnacle. Same shift, same desk. His granddaughter's photo went right back where it belonged. Connie Bridges joined the Employee Dignity Oversight Committee. She was the youngest member. At her first meeting, Lorraine Ashford asked her why she wanted to serve. Connie said, "Because I sat behind a glass wall and watched something terrible happen, and I didn't move. I never want to be that person again." One man's cruelty had been protected by a system of silence. It took one woman's complaint, one daughter's courage, one receptionist's copied file, and one board willing to act to tear that silence down. May Norwood's apartment looked different now. On the living room wall, the Howard University law degree still hung in its dark wood frame. But next to it was something new, a photograph. Elaine in her judicial robes, arm around her mother, both smiling. The kind of smile that doesn't perform for the camera, the kind that just happens when two people know what they survived to get there. May could have told Garrett Hollis who her daughter was. Any day, any moment. She could have dropped the name and watched his face change. But she didn't. Because May believed, and still believes, that you shouldn't have to prove your worth to be treated with dignity. So let me ask you, if you were Connie, if you saw it all happen and you had the evidence on your screen, would you have spoken up sooner? Or would you have stayed quiet? Be honest. And if this story moved you, hit subscribe. I tell stories like this every week, about the people the world overlooks and the moments that change everything. One more thing. Do you think Garrett deserved a second chance? Or was holding that door open too little too late? Let me know in the comments.
May could have told Wallace who her daughter was. Any day, one name, and his whole face would have changed. She never did. And that choice, that's the part of this story I can let go of. may believe deep in her bones that you shouldn't have to prove your worth to be treated like a human being, not with a title, not with a famous daughter, not with a name that makes someone's face go white. And I think she's right, but I also think that's the hardest belief to hold, because the world doesn't work that way there. The world still decide how to treat you beyond your uniform, your zip code, your skin, and until that changes, there will always be mazed people who deserve dignity and don't receive it, simply because nobody asked who they were before deciding they didn't matter. The question isn't whether Mace deserved better. Of course, she did. The question is, why did it take a judge walking into a boardroom for anyone to care? Have you ever treated someone differently, better, kinder, more carefully, only after you found out who they were connected to? Be honest with yourself. Tell me in the comments if it hit you. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell. We tell this story every week. Dignity shouldn't require a resume. It should just require a pause. Remember that.